No idea what all that means, but let's try and come up with a winning tactic. Hi guys, I'm Aussie Villain and welcome to my tactics tutorial for Football Manager 22. If you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. If you enjoy the video, hit thumbs up. And what we're going to do is try and show you how I go about building a tactic to hopefully win lots and lots of games. Now, one thing that doesn't exist, I don't think anyway, is the perfect tactic that works everywhere, because something that works with Barcelona is not going to work, for example, with my Sydney FC side that I've been playing with through the beta, just to sort of help me learn the game. Now, I always think you want to build from the back, and the reason I think that is because if you keep a clean sheet, you get at least a point, and that is obviously a good thing. Now, unless you are, if you're playing as a smaller team or someone that doesn't always have the millions and millions to go out and spend and buy whatever player you want, I always think with central defenders, it's important to get just big boys at the back. Doesn't matter about pace, and make sure that you have. It doesn't really want you've got to have a coherent plan. My plan is always get the big guys at the back and see we've got two guys there with decent jumping reach. Now, the reason that I don't think pace necessarily matters too much is because you can sit deep. If they sit deep, there's no way in behind them. You can hide their lack of pace. Now, there's nothing wrong with a quick defender. You can play a higher line, but the problem you run into is that you can't play a high line from a corner. So eventually, your defenders are going to have to head the ball away, and it's just, to me, it's a weakness that you can't hide, whereas you can hide a lack of pace. And the other thing that you can do with big defenders at the back is that you can do this, play for set pieces. Now, if you were with me for FM21, H&W Welders, we had Ross McGurk. He was just a massive beast in the air, got us through several Champions League ties. He would get the goals. He would go forward and get the goals for us. And that is a very good and effective way to play the game, I think. Anyway, think Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis, central defenders, they can also win your game. They can score at both ends if you're playing for set pieces and using them effectively. But of course, you just got to have a general plan. That is the main thing. So if you are playing, with the big defenders that I've got, chances are that there's going to be a lot of space in behind. The other team's going to obviously push onto you, which leaves space behind. And the best way to exploit that space is with pace. That's easy for you to say. So that's what you should look to do, in my opinion. Again, this is all just in my opinion. You can see the best example we've got for that in this team is Bughala. I have no idea how you say that. But very pacey. We've got Barbarousis, who is fading, but not the slowest. Lafondra is actually surprisingly quick for a 35-year-old. And Casillas, who is, he's more of a creative player anyway. But if you get the ball forward quickly with your big centre-backs, clearing it wide, getting the ball forward. I'm actually trying to play a little bit more football with this team, so that this is maybe not the best example of it. But get the ball forward, you can distribute to the flanks. You can pass the ball into space, all these sorts of things, exploit the flanks, as I say. It will get the ball forward for you quickly and exploit the space that is in behind. Now, looking for the overlap is something that can be useful, particularly if you are playing with, I don't think I have a second formation, but if you're just playing with wingbacks, it can be a useful thing to look to exploit the flank, to look for the overlap. But what you're going to want to do is lower down your tempo. The reason being, if you're pinging the ball up really quickly, playing at that higher tempo, getting it forward, you're not going to give your fullbacks time to get forward to support the attack. It's just going to happen too quick for them. And then what's likely going to happen is they're going to be going forward. You'll give the ball away, and then they're going to be out of position. So if you do want to look for the overlaps, just make sure you're lowering the tempo just purely so that your fullbacks get a chance to get forward to support the attack. Now, if you do find yourself in a situation where you are playing a higher line, whether that be you've got a bit of pace in defense, or the other team is playing sort of the Catenaccio style and they're just going to sit back and you want to try and put some pressure on them, what that is going to mean is that you're going to need to change the way you attack. It's no good. You're not going to have the space in behind to play the pacey attacking football. And this is more the sort of football that I've been trying to play with this team. So what you're going to want to do in that case is perhaps lower the tempo down. You use the team to get the players to get more creative. You may want to play for set pieces. Depends if you have a good set piece taker and or centre back to get on the end of things. And you're possibly going to want to work the ball into the box as well. But the sort of players you're going to need to do that are your more creative players. Now in this team, Ninkovic is the main guy that we have. Passing, vision, all these sorts of things. I will do another tutorial on sorts of attributes you want for players in certain positions. So these are the sorts of guys you're going to want. Bratton isn't the worst either. Again, at A-League level, decent passing, decent vision, and Casillas, as we saw. Anyway, again, not the worst, not the best, but not the worst. So those are the sorts of players that you're going to want, and then you're going to... well, strikers... It depends on how you want to play. I always think strikers tend to play better in a role that suits them. You'll find, I just, to be honest, I find what works best for a striker to fit into a team rather than having a set sort of striker. But just be aware that, yeah, if you are going to play a higher line there, you're going to need different players than if you're playing a deeper line. But again, that all just comes back to making sure that you have sort of a general plan, general idea of what you want to do. Now, another thing you're going to want to be aware of is this team fluidity. Now, right now, we're flexible. We know each other pretty well. You can see there's a tactical familiarity up there. Oops. The only thing that is a little bit below is the players, the position, role, duty. Everything else, though, is fairly good. Now, another way you can see the team fluidity is if you go up to dynamics here, and you can see cohesion. So right now, team cohesion is good, and one of the things it says here is that this improves the play positioning during matches, and it also their improvement is going to have. So there is going to be an improvement in vision, reactions to events unfolding, things like that. So once you get to this point, that is when you can start to look to be more expressive with the creative freedom. Before that, if it says that they're structured or rigid or whatever the word is, I can't remember off the top of my head what the word is that is used. What you might want to do, especially, it's just be more disciplined. Now, it's not going to mean you're going to score less goals. You can see there, it just means that the players are going to sort of stick more to the position and the role that you've given them. So it just makes you a little bit more solid. And yes, you're not going to maybe have Bratton running off of this guy and running, creating some sort of magical goal that you'd see a Pep Guardiola side scoring. But it's going to make you a little bit more solid defensively, and it just helps. It just helps get those results early on, which is obviously a very important thing. So that is just there, whether you're more disciplined or not. But yeah, that's one thing to be aware of. Now, another question that you may need to ask yourself is, do your attacking players need defensive duties? Now, if you've watched my Let's Plays, and I really recommend that you watch them, you will know this is something that I always do. So, for example, my wingers always have the duty, we're going to edit here, of marking, and this is a bad example because I haven't got it done, of marking the opposition fullbacks. Now, the reason I like to do that is I'd like to see my fullbacks are going to be, generally speaking, picking up opposition wingers or maybe wide strikers or whatever the player position may be. I like these guys to just track the fullbacks back. I don't expect them to be defensive gems. I just like them to make a token effort just to try and prevent other teams doing this to me, getting that overlap. If they're being marked as they make the fullbacks are being marked as they make their run back, it just kind of kills that off. You do want to make sure you have an out ball, whether that's a striker staying up top, or if you've got two strikers. I will usually, if I'm playing with two strikers and a number 10, for example, I'll have the strikers tracking back. I'll leave the attacking creative midfielder up there. And what that does mean then is that when you turn the ball, when you win the ball back, your strikers are already in wide areas, and you may then want to look to, in transition, distribute the ball to flanks. It's just something that, again, comes back to having that general plan. But attacking players with defensive duties, something that I think, anyway, is very important. Now, the final thing I want to touch on is individual player instructions. I do have quite a few people ask me about this. I tend to not use them too much unless a player is particularly good at something. Now, we saw Ninkovic before. He is a very, very good, very good creative player. So in this case, what I have is take more risks. So I want him, when he's on the ball, try and get that killer ball through. I want him to take risks. Now, if there's somebody that is particularly good at dribbling, I would then, we'll just go back to this, I would then ask them to dribble more, obviously with different position roles. There's different options that are and aren't available. Ninkovic isn't particularly good at dribbling. He's not bad, so I just leave that sort of as is. And I generally do just leave it as is. One thing that you may want to play with is the crossing frequency. So if we go to sort of fullbacks and have a look at that, you may want them crossing from deep. You may want them crossing from the byline. You may want them crossing more or less often. That's not something I particularly play with, but it is obviously something that you could look to do. it just depends, again, how you want to play, whether you want your fullbacks getting more forward, whether you want them to stay wide when your team has the ball, or come in a little bit narrower. If you're playing with a fullback, generally you would want them to stay wider, particularly if you're looking for the overlap. You'd want them staying wider. I always think it's one of those things that you'll notice as the game's playing out that someone's not quite doing what you want them to. That's a good time to come and use individual instructions. As I say, as a general rule, I don't use them unless a player is really good at something, in which case, or really bad, in which case I want them to do it more or less often. But yeah, that is the way I do that. I'm going to do a separate tutorial on setting up set pieces, but that is definitely something that you want to have a look at as well. And I'll also do a separate tutorial on opposition, sort of coming up with a tactical plan to try and counter what they're trying to do to you. But that is it for this particular tutorial. If you've enjoyed it, thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, have a look around the channel while you're here. There's going to be more tutorials. There's going to be some Let's Plays. We're going to try and win the Champions League with Queen of the South in Scotland, so that should be a challenge, and some more other fun things as well. So until next time, I've been Aussie Villain. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.